Alright, back again, Luke here. And today, as you can see in front of you, we have another box, or another project. And as you can tell from the title here, this is a very rare, obscure Sega game, known as Sega's Rail Chase. And this is the original Rail Chase, not Rail Chase 2, although I did get a Rail Chase 2 up and running recently as well. This is the original. Now, this one does have quite a bit of issues going on with it, so it's going to take some time to get it running, and this is going to be a bit tricky here to try and open up, so we may have to move this around a little here. Hopefully we don't bump into anything. This is a pretty massive board, so apparently what's wrong with this one is it has some corrosion going on in some of the main parts of the board. We have some of the ROM ICs up at the top here, and we have the rest of the board located inside. I'm trying to get this thing out so you guys can take a look at it, but yeah, this thing is a beast. As you can see here, this is the casing for it, and it has a lot of these kind of snaps on it to keep the case in place, but we'll go ahead and see if we can try and angle this here so you can get a better look. It's kind of tricky because it's so huge, but these just pop right up here. I have to go along the edge and get all of them. Well, that one just popped out. That should be alright. And that should be most of them. Let's see here. I can pop this off. And here we have it. This is the arcade PCB. And as you can see, there is quite a bit of corrosion going on here, especially on these legs here and these sockets, which is preventing the board from starting. So what I was able to find out about this board is that the bottom half of it seems to be working okay, without any problems, but the top half here has definitely seen much better days. And you'll notice that some of the traces in the middle here are also discolored. I'm kind of hoping that's just surface and not anything very deep in it. I know that some of these, you can notice here on the edge here, these resistors are quite chewed up. And some of these quad flat packs on the top here look like they happen to have some corrosion as well. So what we'll probably do, you can see here, this looks really bad. This is the LED, and that doesn't even look safe to turn on. This is the entire sound section here. So one of the first things I'm going to do is remove this top board, and then we'll go ahead and try to remove the sockets, because those sockets will not function as they are, and those are just way too far gone. So we'll have to go ahead and take those out. I'm not sure if the ceramic resistors or the, it looks like it's just resistors. I don't know if any of these are salvageable, but we'll see what we can do. Try and test for shorts, make sure there's nothing causing it to not turn on before we add power to it. Apparently, previous owner didn't add power to it because they saw that it was in such a rough state that they decided not to apply power to it, which is why they removed the ROMs as well. But you can see down at the bottom there's quite a bit of rust here too. No clue as to what the bottom of this board looks like, but next thing we'll do is we'll try and take the top part off and get a better look at what it looks underneath, and at least take a look at what the bottom board looks like. But so far this is where we're at. This is a bit of a project in the works, but hopefully we can get it running again. So I'm going to go ahead and take this top part off, and then I'll see you guys here in a few minutes. Okay, so as you can see, this is the bottom half of the board, and this is Sega's Y hardware. This one had a few different games that ran on it. Some of the most notable ones would be Power Drift, I think, and G-LOC were a couple of games that worked on this hardware. It's, I mean, amazing when it's running. Has fantastic sprite capabilities, just really great scrolling effects, etc. But as of right now, this board is in a bit of disrepair. So the front board, after taking this off, or the top board, looking at the bottom part of it, it appears to be in decent condition. It looks like someone has replaced some of these ICs over here at some point, but other than that, the bottom of the board looks a lot better than I would have originally expected. So hopefully a lot of this is just surface kind of related issues, and we'll be able to maybe just replace some of the parts that are needed and be able to get this thing up and running fairly easy. I don't know, I may be counting my chickens before they hatch here, but we're going to try and see what we can do with it. Like I said before, I'm going to remove these sockets because they are just extremely corroded. You can see the legs there, rusted and eaten, and yeah, these resistors do not look so great. Makes you wonder about the RAM chips here too, if those are going to be all right, or even if the Z80 is going to still function. But some of them look like you can get away with it. These ones look okay. The ones over here look maybe doable. But yeah, definitely these three here, and probably the fourth one as well. We're going to have to remove those and try and clean those up. But this is where we're at. And I think what I may do is try to remove these sockets off camera. You can see this one as well. This seems to have some maybe pin damage. I can't even tell. But yeah, that's quite corroded. I'll try and remove these sockets maybe off camera and then see what we're left with underneath, and hopefully the traces aren't eaten too bad. But that's definitely got to go as well. Probably the sound chip next to that. I don't know. If it works, that would be great, but a lot of corrosion going on there. So, but anyway, we'll go ahead and see what we can do. Try our best to get this thing all scrubbed up and at least able to test out a little bit more. But I'll see you here in a bit. So with a bit more light, you can actually see what the board looks like a little easier. Maybe even using the magnifying glass, you can see some of the corrosion that's going on over here and the traces, etc. I'm thinking for some of these other areas here, for example, the surface mounted ICs, I might be able to use a fiberglass pen to clean those up, at least try and clean up the legs. But yeah, these, like this here, this is just, I mean, it's barely hanging on. One leg is completely rusted off, so that's going to have to come out for sure. Some of these other ones, they look doable. Like over here on this IC, it looks like it does have some corrosion, but it should be, I don't know, we can hope for the best here. Should polish up, I would hope so. But nevertheless, I think I'll grab my pen, wherever I put it, my fiberglass pen, and I'll try and clean up some of the legs on these and see what we get after that. So this is my fiberglass pen here, and just to show you how it works, basically just going over the legs here and just rubbing back and forth, you should be able to get a little bit of the corrosion or whatever is on these legs here to come off. If it doesn't come off, it usually means that it's pretty far gone, but if you're able to get the legs to somewhat shine up, you may have a better chance here of getting a good connection. But I find that this works out quite well. You can see kind of already that some of that dirt and grime is lifting off the legs. The top parts of the legs here look really, really nice. The bottom ones, not so much. So we may have to, in worst case scenario, remove this IC and clean the pads and then reaffix it. Sometimes that works a lot better than just trying to clean up the legs here, because you never know how corroded the bottom part is, or if under the IC too it has any corrosion or not. Even with this, you can see that it's somewhat polished, but there's still quite a bit of corrosion underneath that. So as it is, it probably won't make a good contact. I'm using just a paintbrush here to clean it up a little bit, but it is removing some of the surface grime. Well, what I'm going to do is try and do that for the other IC over here in the corner. This one needs a bit more work, and I don't know. Some of these vias here look like they're also quite corroded, so I may have to go over those, possibly remove the solder that's on there and apply some fresh solder just to make sure that the top and the bottom part make a good connection. But yeah, nevertheless, this is going to take a little bit of time to get this done. But yeah, you can see it's kind of polishing up, but especially over here in the corner, that's going to need a bit more work. So I'll continue doing that, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the other ICs and hopefully be able to get this to look a little bit better. But I'll see you in a bit. Well, after removing the Z80, you can see that this thing has gotten a bit green as well. So it looks like we're going to have to remove that socket too. Makes you wonder what else is going on here, but I think the security EEPROMs or security picks are probably going to have to come out as well. But yeah, it's getting a bit grim here looking at some of these traces as well, but that's where we're at. Well, after a bit of some hard work, I was able to remove those rusted out sockets, and unfortunately I had to kind of break them out instead of desolder them, just because the solder has encrusted itself onto parts of the board, and to try and desolder these would actually cause a lot of the vias or the other side of the pads just to come up. So I had to kind of remove these just piece by piece here to try and get them out, and you can see the kind of damage that is underneath here. Maybe there's a bit too much reflection, but you can see that some of these traces look either faded or they may be, in some cases, detached. But what I need to do is, since the pins are all free now, from the other side I'll try to desolder the pins one by one and get those out of there. And that way I can clean up the top part, I can make sure that the vias are secured, make sure that all contacts are making a good contact, and we can go from there. You can see I've also removed the LED, but yeah, there's so much rust here, so I'm going to remove this O-key sound IC as well. Check the area around here, because it looks like there's a couple of traces that are running underneath this, which could be eaten away. But still a bit more work to do on this, but that's where we're at currently. I do have some replacements from another Sega board. It's a parts board, hopefully, that I can use these. These are actually capacitors, and I thought that they were resistors, but they're axial kind of capacitor that has fuse in it, and I suppose if there's overcurrent or if something goes wrong, they pop. So a bit similar to a varistor, I suppose. But yeah, we'll see if we can find some replacements for those, and yeah, just see what we can do here. But the next step is to try and clean up all these holes here and remove all of the remnants of the legs. But I'll get on that and see you in a bit. Well, as you can see here, I've removed most of the remnants of those sockets. I've tried to clean out most of the holes. I think I have 2 holes that are still plugged here that I'll need to clean out. And I've tried to remove any components around this area. I've removed this resistor array here, cleaned underneath that. I've also removed this resistor array and cleaned under that. This 74LS 74 is one that I think I'm going to wind up replacing, just because it does not look very good at all. It's green pretty much all the way around. I think it's probably just going to be a safer bet if I get a new one in there. So I'm going to put a socket in there after I clean up that area. But I've been going around and testing the traces here. So far, the traces near the Z80 seem to all be making a contact, which is fantastic. Still need to go over these 2 megabyte ROMs here and make sure that all of those traces are making a good connection. But it's looking a lot better than what it was before, because if you can remember, it was pretty corroded, pretty crusty. I don't know if I can move this light around to make it a little easier to see, but it's getting there, and it's hopefully going to, well, fingers crossed, not have any big issues. But We never know. This over here, this Oki sound chip is probably going to need to be replaced. I don't know if I have a replacement for it. I might try to clean it up and put it back in and just kind of hope that it works, but it does not look very promising. Never know though. So I've got quite a bit of work to do. These pins over here you can see are also quite corroded. Those are the ones for the RGB out and for the audio out. So we'll have to clean those up. And then we'll work our way around to these surface mounted components here. The legs are pretty crusty and this capacitor needs to be replaced as well as a few more. But it's getting there, slowly but surely. So we'll go ahead and see what else we can come up with next, and I'll take some footage of that when I get finished. Well, here we have it. I've put in a new socket and replaced that 74LS74 with a supposedly good one. I don't know if that will actually work or not. It was part of a lot of ICs that I wound up getting a while back, but sometimes those are a bit hit and miss. But nevertheless, you can see these capacitors here are still a pretty big issue, especially the ones that are rotten away. These over here are resistors that we're going to remove. I do have a few that I have sourced from another Sega arcade PCB, and it's really hard to see, but if you look closely, you can pretty much tell that a lot of these have the same band, or the band code for it. So if that is the case, you know, with all of these over here, they look to be all the same. I'm going to replace all of those and hopefully remove the rust stains that are under that, because as it is, these are just not going to work. This is supposed to be red, orange, white, I think, and these ones here are also red, orange, white. So we're going to go ahead and get those installed, remove the rust, and hopefully this part of the board will look a bit cleaner. There are still some areas, especially around here, that have some corrosion in them. I'm not sure if I want to remove the entire socket for these or not. We'll have to wait and see if I can clean them up a bit, but that's where we're at. It seems to be coming together bit by bit. So all of these tested areas, all of the traces seem to be fine and intact, which is extremely surprising considering the condition of the board, but looking a bit more hopeful here. So I'm going to go ahead and change these out, and hopefully when we come back, we'll have something that looks a bit more presentable. All right, so this is where we're at so far. As you can see, I've replaced these various components here that I had from my other parts board, and I put those in. I also put in the sockets for this. I polished up the Z80. I'm not sure if this works or not, so it's going to be one of those things we're going to have to wait and see. As far as the RAM goes too, it's a bit of a mystery as to if that'll work or not. But I tried to clean up this area. I still need to reflow the pins on this side, and I need to reflow the pins on this IC because those are still corroded. I've moved the Oki, there it is, IC, and socketed that. I've put in a new LED here, clean the area. It looks like it's okay. You'll notice that we still have a couple of resistors over here, and I don't know what the value is. Looking at the pattern though, it looks like every odd resistor seems to be the same. So I'm guessing that this first one here and this last one are the same, but I can't tell if this is a 3-band or a 4-band one. It's really hard to see, but if I can find that, I'll try and get that put in and clean up that area a bit more. But it's pretty close to, I want to say, done. But, oh, I also replaced this over here, this capacitor. Unfortunately, it was a 470 microfarad 16 volt. I didn't have a 16 volt, but I had a 40 volt. So it's a bit bigger, but it looks like it'll work out all right. I still need to clean up this socket here because I don't know if that's going to have any trouble. These are some of the remnants of the broken and junk parts here that we have so far. But it's coming along. It looks a bit more presentable than what it was, at the beginning of the video. And hopefully with all this work, we'll be able to finally have something that starts up, or at least that will try to power up, because at the original state it was in, it wasn't going to do anything. So, but yeah, anyway, that's where we're at here, and I'm going to keep plugging along, hopefully get this all cleaned up, and then maybe in the next part we'll be able to try something out. So I'll get on that and see you in a bit. Well, because I wasn't getting really good continuity on the pins on these sockets, I decided to remove them, and I put in some new ones here. So those should be much better, and they should get a much better fit. As well as the IC here, this quad flat pack, I wound up putting down the pins again on these two corners here. So that should be all right. At least those are making a good solid contact. So the next things that we have to work on, still we have to find these resistors. I need to find out what the rating is and if I can find something comparable. And I need to try and fix these legs here because although I've cleaned them up, they're not getting such a good contact as well. So I'm going to go ahead, try and resolder that, reflow those, and see if I can find that. And then I would say we're about ready to put the EEPROMs and ROMs back in this thing. Then try and make a wire harness to try and test it out. So we'll get on that, and I'll be back in a bit. Well, here's what it looks like with all of the EEPROMs put back in and the sockets and everything. I tried to clean up this area, but unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of corrosion down here, and I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, and that's something that I'll probably have to try to invest in. But some of these boards are just so big, they wouldn't even fit in there. But I'm missing one of these resistors. This is a 220k ohm resistor, and I don't have anything with that. I was able to barely make out what the resistor value was. I mean, this thing is really, really charred and rusted. So, but what I was able to figure out is it has two red lines, and the other one at the bottom, you can almost barely see it, but it looks like a faint yellow line, which would coincide with the one right next to it. So I need to pick up a 220 ohm resistor, but somehow, I don't know, I'm not sure if this is going to make a big difference with the starting of the game or not. I'm not really sure. It may not do anything because it doesn't have that resistor in there, and that may be connected over here to one of these pins, but in fact, I think it is. It's connected to one of these. If it's connected to this is the RGB sync. If it's connected to this, I believe that's the audio, which wouldn't be a problem, but nevertheless, since I don't have the part, I'm just going to try to put this thing back together and see if we get anything on screen. So the next thing we'll do is try to reassemble this, put it back in the case, and see what we get as far as anything. But I'll get on that and see you in a bit. All right, so I've got everything basically wired up, I believe, in order to test this thing, but really nervous about what this thing is going to do. I've got my power input here and my video, and my speaker is over here. But everything looks okay. But yeah, I suppose without further ado, let's go ahead and hit the power and see if we get anything on this thing. So let's pop this on and check some of that. Well, I can hear music, but I don't see anything on screen. Oh, sounds like it's working. Sounds like it's playing, but I'm not getting any video here. Huh. No video signal at all. I don't know if it stopped or if that's part of the demo screen or whatnot, but yeah, this thing isn't... Yeah, it's still running, but we're not getting any video signal here at all. Alright, so as you guys can see here, it's extremely grainy. I'm trying to get this thing to display an image. It's going through my CGA to VGA converter, but it's showing it's not a really nice picture at all. But I need to try and work out the issues with the the screen. It's just not very good, and I don't know if there's anything I can do to adjust it. but I think it's probably something to do with the sync or the screen here. But it is displaying an image, and it is technically running, but it just needs a bit of tweaking here. But this is pretty awesome. I mean, it's getting there. I think it may be missing a few sound effects. I'm not sure. This may be the way it is, though. I'm not, like I said, I'm not 100% sure. This is the first time owning this hardware here, so I don't see any way to really make this change by applying pressure to any of these chips. Some of the chips are getting, you know, warm. Alright, so as you can see here, we still have our sync issues going on, but you know, the colors aren't quite right and the screen's a bit off here. But a few of the controls wired up. Unfortunately, the sound is hilarious. Sounds like some chipmunk action going on here. I'm guessing it's the reason why is because of that 220k ohm resistor that's missing, but let's see if we can start it up here. You guys can get a kick out of this. Let's put in some coins. But yeah, it's missing all kinds of sound effects. So let's see here. Press the old start button. Try and count down here. But you can hear, like I do have the shot here hooked up, but it's like stuck in the bottom corner, so you can't really see anything. You just see like that blue flashing light down there. But it's missing all kinds of sound effects, so it's going to either be that resistor, or I'm guessing it's the Z80. That's probably bad, but it's hilarious. It's got like a stopwatch kind of sound to it. That's where we're at here. Kind of getting there, but it looks like it seems to be scrolling through the graphics quite well, which is nice. Just all of the sound effects and music are love the chipmunk sounds here. But yeah. But there's a little bit of a look at it. We'll see if we can get a bit further on it, but something kind of funny to share with you guys here. So in order to go back and try and troubleshoot that sound audio problem that we're having, I'm going over all of the amplifiers that are in this. There's one over here. This is a YM2151 Yamaha. And there's also this one here. This is the one that was actually quite green, which makes me think it could be this one here. The reason why I'm not exactly 100% certain on this is because, as you can see, underneath these ICs there's still a lot of corrosion and it's quite hidden, so it's hard to tell exactly where this is coming from, this issue, but it seems like it's not making a connection. After checking out online, this one here, this is responsible for multi-channel like sound mixing. And here is a bit of a look at what the underside of the YM2151 amp looks like here. This is a bit sooty around this area, which is usually a telltale sign of it getting too hot, sometimes burning out, but you can see that there is quite a bit of corrosion underneath this as well. So I'm going to try and maybe clean up these points here a bit, check the traces, and put a socket in for this just in case. But we've got the other two here socketed in. I was able to find a replacement one that I remember marking as OK before for this YM3021, so we'll try that out. And unfortunately, this TL0282, I don't have a replacement for that. But most of these chips look really, really rusty and crusty, so if possible, I'd like to try and put in a new one. But yeah, that's where we're at with these ones here, so we'll get on that and see what we get. And here's a bit of a look at what things are like underneath this SRAM here. These are both connected to that multi-output DAC. So I'm wondering if there's going to be some trouble here with the lines or the traces or the RAM itself. But that's another thing that I'm going to try and socket here and then put that in and see if we get any differences or any changes. But yeah, it doesn't look so nice there, that's for sure. I removed that. Apparently there's some written reports of this going bad, and it's a quite often failure point for this part of the board when it comes down to the sound effects or the sound just completely cutting out. I've also tried to socket the two RAM ICs that were actually powering this chip, thinking that that would change something, but unfortunately it didn't really change too much. So what I'm going to do is try and clean up this area. Maybe for some reason there may not be good contacts coming around here because this is where a lot of the corrosion was, and by some maybe hope of luck I might be able to get this thing up and running again. If not, this IC is quite rare and it's hard to find. There are only a couple of other boards, I believe Hang-On and maybe one other one or a couple other ones that utilize this IC. The other one is like Outrun, which is a board that I would rather not remove anything from if I could find one, you know, if there was one for parts maybe. But that's currently where we're at. I'm going to try and clean up the pads around this area, and then we'll do some further inspection, see if we can find something that maybe might lead to something a bit more positive with this sound area. So I'll get on that and I'll see you in a bit. All right, so I've been going crazy here trying to figure out what is wrong with this sound section. I've gone underneath all of these ICs here, checked the traces, polished them up, made sure they all have continuity. I've tried to replace a few of the ICs here with no change at all. Those sound samples have just been consistently persistent here, regardless of what I do to this sound section. I did find one broken trace here, which was on pin 5 between these two mask ROMs, and I put that on, and it brought the sound back a little bit, but unfortunately it was still having those strange sound effects and the high-pitched voice. Now what I did decide to do is remove these two SRAMs here, and I went back over the traces. I scraped away everything, a lot of the solder mask here, to make sure, I'm 100% sure that all of these pins were making good contact. And right here there is a small trace, and it looks really good. I mean, it looks like it's connected, but in fact the via and this trace here are not connected, and this seems to go over here to this final pin over, what is it? Maybe pin 30, maybe pin 30? But it looks like a power rail, which would make a lot of sense. If that was missing, there would be no power going to half of this sound. So I'm going to try to replace this. I have a piece of NAR wire that I'm going to try and feed into that. I'm going to make another round and double check that all of these traces are making a good connection, and then we'll see how that works. Hopefully that'll be the end of our issue here, but yeah, it's been a bit of a hunt here, so I'm gonna get on that and we'll see what happens after this. Alright, so I've gone ahead and put everything back together again. I put the new RAM chips in, the existing RAM chips in, and I've got this thing wired up. So without further ado, let's go ahead and test this one more time and see if that changed anything. But let's pop this on and check some of that. It sounded like the same popping sound as before. You can see the pictures a little better, but well, that sounded a bit deeper. Oh, the sounds are back! Oh, nice! Oh my gosh, I think we're ready to rock. Let's start this up here. Let's see. This thing's got some waviness going in through it because of the converter, and the speakers are pretty bad too, but whoa! This is awesome. The sounds are back. It's a little staticky, but all right. These things are all back. This sounds pretty good. I mean, obviously the speakers, it's really staticky because of the maybe grounding issue, or just the volume is up too high. I'm not sure, but these speakers are not great. But yeah, that was it. We are back and ready to roll here. Awesome. Yeah, that's normal voices. This is great. I mean, it looks horrible, absolutely horrible going through this kind of monitor. A nice CRT would be fantastic. But it's working, and all the sound effects are there. Oh, the screams are there. Awesome. That is great to know that it's not that sound chip, because that is an absolute pain to find. We'll just let it. Fantastic. But yeah, a bit of a longer look at this repair here. Finally able to bring back this board that was rusted and completely chewed up by all kinds of vermin and whatnot, rust, etc. And getting this thing back to a fully functioning condition. This is A+ here. But if you stuck on till the end here, then fantastic. But I have to go ahead and try and get some gameplay up on this thing when we get a chance. But it is running, and it is brought back from the dead. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get another video up here soon. Thanks again.